Hello, welcome to today's episode of the Group Therapy Podcast. Today we have returning guest Johnny Catalano. We're going to be talking about horror movies and all kinds of fun stuff. So, you know, Johnny, tell us what's going on with you right now.
Yeah, of course. So, I'm essentially just busy with my production company, Catalano Film Co. This year is an exciting year because we're going to kind of go more into the producing route. So, as of thus far, I've pretty much just used my company to produce my film and some following films that are slated for this year and the coming years. But we're kind of getting into the realm of producing ourselves. So yeah, we're really looking for kind of the local talent. So I'm based in Dayton, Cincinnati area. So we are pretty much our goal, our mission, I suppose, is to really get some auteur-driven type short films in the area. So we really want to find these very unique, very idiosyncratic filmmakers in kind of the Dayton, Cincinnati. Even I've branched out to Northern Ohio, Northwest Ohio, just getting them and producing them their films, their passion projects. And really the plan in the future is to move on to kind of, feature films. And I'm working on producing a feature film myself at the moment, but the goal is to produce other people's feature films as well. And really kind of cultivate a Romero style kind of film culture. He did it in Pittsburgh. I'd love to do that kind of here in Cincinnati, Dayton area. And and I also have a film festival in February. It's called the Catalano Film Festival. Might as well put your name on stuff. And it's going to be, like I said, kind of the auteur-driven, very high quality local talent. And that's going to be in Miamisburg, Ohio, for any listeners that are kind of local to that area. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, because I've had to explain this because I got invited to a horror con over in Virginia just a few weeks ago. And I'm talking to these people and they're like, I was like, man, you don't understand. I was like, Ohio has a relatively big independent film,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it's a lot. And I started bringing it up on my phone. I'm like, that's guys, Ohio. These guys are Ohio. These guys are Ohio. And I'm like flashing through it. And they're like, wow, that's a lot. And I'm like, yeah.
It's a lot, yeah. It's more than people think. It's like I said, we have enough to even make it. I can be sort of picky, I guess, with like the films I can produce. That's kind of how diverse our filmmaking group is. Where I can kind of say, I kind of want to work on this film because I think it's a little more up my alley. It's a little more kind of it's kind of like, I don't want to compare it to something else necessarily, but kind of like what United Artists or what A24 does now, kind of having those very hands-off the auteur, just letting them make their films.
Mm-hmm.
And like obviously A24 has that kind of stamp of, wow, this is prestigious, So I guess that's kind of like what I'm trying to do at the local level. But yeah, like you said, it's very we have a very rich film culture right now, and all it needs to do is just be cultivated, and hopefully we send features out there to the world. And I mean, there's already features coming out, so just really kind of promoting that is kind of like one of my life's vocations, I guess, you could say, at the moment. But yeah, on top of that, I guess I've been kind of busy, which is kind of the topic of conversation today. Kind of with my social media presence, I've been kind of doing film reviews. I wouldn't want to call them film reviews necessarily because I don't feel like I'm qualified necessarily to be like a film reviewer, giving it stars or ratings necessarily. But I just am basically, for this month in particular, I'm doing the 31 Days of Horror. So if you go to Catalano Film Co. page, it'll be called Johnny Catalano's 31 Days of Horror, which is basically me uh, basically just giving recommendations on like kind of my favorite horror films. As much as I can fit it in 1 month, because it's actually I feel like, oh, this is actually really hard because there's so much out there. There's so much that I love, and I'm like running out of time. Like today's the day we're recording, October 23rd. Like kind of running out of time, but I'm sure there's going to be some bleed over into November. But yeah, I pretty much am just citing some of the horror films that kind of made me fall in love with the genre. Maybe some I just discovered just recently. Like there's a few I discovered just this month or watched this month, and kind of already kind of shaped me and kind of already changed me. So yeah,
So with putting this together, have you discovered something recently that you just really like? Man, where has this been? Why did I not watch this before now?
well, that's it. Well, we were talking before we began. You said we brought up Carnival of Souls,
Yeah.
and that is one I specifically discovered this month. And that one I don't know why it took me a while to watch it. Like it was always on my kind of list, I guess, because I know it's a David Lynch is a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
Like Guillermo del Toro's talked about it, I think, several times. So it's been on my log, I guess. But I eventually like finally watched it because I mean, for any listeners out there, like it's very easy to watch because if you have like any streaming platform,
It's there.
It's there because it's public domain. So it's a very interesting film in many ways.
You gonna say hi, Vince? Yep. Hi, bud. Go play.
What's his name?
That's Vince.
Nice. That's a good name.
Yeah, that's my Vincent. What are you doing, bud? Say hi. Nope. Go upstairs and play.
An apple?
Yeah, he's got his apple.
Oh yeah, he's good. He's
my,
good apple. Yeah.
Yeah, he's fun. He has autism, so he's kind of in his own little world.
Oh yeah.
And but
yeah. I mean, he's welcome to join in the chat.
It's funny because Carnival of Souls is something I really discovered in probably the late 80s, early 90s when they started putting those boxes of public domain VHS tapes out.
Oh yeah.
And
the horrible covers and everything.
Yeah, I bought like this big box that had like, I don't know, 15 or 20 movies in it.
Yeah.
And of course, Night of the Living Dead, Carnival of Souls, White Zombie, all that's in there. But Carnival of Souls is the one I had never seen at that point. So this is probably 89 or 90.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, this is really good. And I'm like, this is way ahead of its time. And
very much so. Yeah.
It's it's an art horror film from, I can't remember what year it came.
Yeah, it was. I think was it 62?
Yeah,
I want to say 1962, 63. So it's like kind of still got that 50s kind of Americana kind of vibe to it, but it's definitely. And what's very interesting to me, at least, about it is that it's very much like a regional horror film, much like Night of the Living Dead. I mean, it was like pretty much self-produced by pretty much an industrial type of filmmaker, Herc Harvey, who made a bunch of commercials. Apparently he made this like one industrial film like later on in the 80s, I think, maybe late 70s, with like the hands kind of, I don't know if you've heard of that one, where it's basically just like a what you might call it, like an after school special almost.
Yeah.
Where like a bunch of hands are just getting chopped off and it's like very gruesome and bloody. Which I want to see that one. But yeah, it was produced by him, and it's got like so much atmosphere and just it's very haunting. What he used, like that pretty much abandoned Coney Island type place, and the score I think is tremendous. The organ score, it's so creepy.
Well, that's like I want to say, and as bad is that people could take this, but the creepy neighbor
Yes,
Just
yeah,
overly
yeah.
and I'm gonna say this, but the kind of rapey neighbor, the overly
Very, very
yeah.
much so. Yeah,
And I was like, that's I think that's the creepiest part of the entire movie is just the
kind of
regular
is.
guy.
It kind of is. Yeah, that lives across the street. Because like for anybody who's like interested or likes David Lynch, like you could actually very much see kind of where he took from that film because his films are all about kind of the underbelly of Americana, like kind of that whole like, oh, it always looks so great, on the surface, but there's a dark side. There's a very dark side to kind of that world, and kind of there's like almost like a dreamlike quality to it that
Oh
the
yeah,
film definitely has.
because
It's
you've got the transitions between the because people say they're zombies, but they're definitely not zombies. They're
no,
they're
no,
they're ghosts is what I would say they were.
yeah,
Um,
ghouls.
yeah, cool. But they're that
Yeah,
the transitions of when she goes from normal to the ghostly things, the music changes, the
yeah,
atmosphere changes,
mm-hmm.
the speed of the film changes,
Yeah,
everything changes, and it's very off putting. Very
incredibly
yeah.
off-putting. And plus, like he uses the because I think it starts in Kansas because he was based out of Kansas, and then he moved. Like the film moves to Salt Lake City,
Mm,
and like he uses that at the end where like the ghosts or ghouls are chasing her. Like the way he uses the Salt Lake as like just basically as a resource to make it even look more bizarro and creepy. It's very, yeah, it's an amazing film, and it took a while for me to see, and I know it's on a Criterion, so I mean I'm sure it's been kind of like renovated in that sense. I don't know what copy I watched, but it was good still, but it probably wasn't Criterion quality, I'm sure.
well, it's funny because Criterion has touched up all these classic movies that are like
Mhm.
Night of the Living Dead and stuff like
Yeah,
that. I'm like, I'm
yeah,
rewatching the Criterion of Night of the Living Dead a while back, and I'm like, wow, this is
yeah.
super crisp and clear. I was like, you see stuff that you never saw before. You know?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's incredible. The way it looks it looks the Criterion print, like you or copy, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
They really did a great job of that because when I showed it back in May, that's the one we used.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think the theater I was doing does a film projection,
Mm-hmm.
but it was incredible. Like it was yeah, it's so crisp, and like it almost feels like one of those like neo-realists, like Italian neo-realists, like kind
Mm-hmm.
of like the way it's shot. And I think we talked about that
Oh
previously.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's,
definitely.
it's so and funny enough, like I was at a shoot in Pittsburgh earlier this month, and like that's I was so excited to kind of see all the Romero sites. Which like I was very busy when I was there, so I got to see it at like the very last day. My girlfriend and I we went to the Evans City Cemetery, which is where the beginning was shot
Yeah, yeah.
of Night of the Living Dead, and it was like kind of like a pilgrimage. It was like it was it was very cool to go to because you could look at the pictures where Barbara and Johnny, I guess, were, and they were kind of the gravestones you could
Mm-hmm.
kind of find and you could touch. You're like, oh man, this is where they were shooting. It's really cool if you ever get the chance, or if you've seen it before.
Well, I've been lucky enough that I've gone over to Monroeville and we've been to the mall
Oh wow, yeah,
because they used to have Pittsburgh Comic Con used to share the same parking lot. So you had the
I see.
convention center over here
Yeah,
and you had the mall over here. So we'd always kind of just walk over at a certain point and go through the mall and then go back.
yeah,
I remember taking my one friend over there for the first time, and I was like, "Hey, that's the mall where they filmed Dawn of the Dead." And
oh yeah,
he's like, "No, it doesn't. It doesn't look the same." I was like,
yeah,
"Go inside."
right,
And a lot of stuff's changed, but you still see certain aspects. And like, he's like, "That's the mall." I'm like, "That's what we
yeah.
told you."
Yeah, I know. And I don't. I've heard that when I was up there, because I had limited time, so I was like, should I do the mall or should I do the cemetery? And at the time, the dude was like, yeah, I guess the cemetery is kind of. I mean, the mall hasn't. It doesn't look very much the same as it does,
No.
obviously, because they're shot in in the late 70s and stuff. So there's probably not like that brown derby or whatever there's there, but it would still be super cool to go to.
Yeah.
Like I still want to kind of like trace my
Oh,
do a
yeah.
little pilgrimage there as well.
Yeah, because it's funny because you look at the aerial views from the movie, and it was like, okay, if you look at right here, that's the convention center that was built like 20 years later.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because then the mall was kind of by itself. Now it's surrounded by stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was still getting developed at the
Yep.
time, and like I remember just watching the kind of behind the scenes of Dawn of the Dead, and Romero was kind of, he was kind of the guy in Pittsburgh, and he knew some people who were kind of in it, like the investors in that mall. So that's kind of where he got the idea in the first place, because obviously like Dario Argento kind of approached him after he did Martin, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and he's like, you need to make a sequel to Night of the Living Dead. He's like, I don't know. and then he heard that mall idea, and then, there we go.
Well, what's funny is that I have both the every once in a while at the shop I'll air the Argento cut of
Oh,
Dawn of the
yeah,
Dead
right. Yeah.
or Zombie, and
Yeah.
then and then we'll watch that. It's like, man, you see it because it's Zombie is super serious. They take all the comedy
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And
Which I will say what you will about like Argento. It's like I like Argento. Like his visual style is like awesome. But yeah, I think Romero kind of has him beat as far as a screenwriter, or at least like injecting some comedy into it, because Argento's films are taken like incredibly seriously.
yeah.
Almost deadly so.
Well, I was explaining to somebody a while back because we were talking about Argento films, and he went from the giallo murder mystery,
Yeah.
And then he went supernatural. Then he went
Right.
back to the just the killer guy.
Yeah.
And there's a newer one on Shudder that I have not watched, but
like one of it, like a brand new one, pretty much.
Not a new, but a newer one, because
yeah. I haven't seen like I don't know if I'm enough of a, at least not at the moment. I don't think I'm enough of an Argento fan to kind of like, I'm gonna get into like, I'm gonna be a completist for Argento. I'm kind of more like, I like his giallo stuff, and yeah. I don't know. I didn't really get into like the supernatural stuff as much with him.
Yeah. See, I'm a big supernatural. I love Suspiria.
I love Suspiria. Suspiria is like his masterpiece for sure. Yeah. Plus the Goblin score is like, jeez.
Yeah. I've legitimately got the Goblin soundtrack on vinyl.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I got it.
I gotta see it.
Well,
oh wow, that's amazing. Oh my gosh, for Zombie?
Yep.
Those are hard to find, are they not? Or
no, these were reissues a while back.
Okay.
And I jumped on them as soon as they offered them.
Yeah. We got to.
Yeah. Well, this one's kind of really neat because this is one of the
oh wow, it's like the what you call that, like transparent almost.
Yeah. It's super and then this one is the phenomenon is the same.
Ooh, very nice. Are they good quality too?
Yeah, really good quality. They're
I gotta get my hands on this.
Well, I tend to listen to a lot of vinyl when and it was all because a friend of mine told me, he goes, I listen to vinyl, he goes, because if you listen to streaming, you tend to lose track of time.
You do, yeah, for sure.
And he goes, at least vinyl, every so often, you got to get up, walk over, flip the album over.
Yeah.
And it's the only thing.
And plus, you know how long the album is. If the album's like 44 minutes or something, you're like, oh, I've been doing this for 44 minutes. Yep.
And
you can listen on to endlessly.
There we go. Yeah, but I've got I just use for the most part I have a ton of scores, and that's what I usually edit to.
Right.
That
Yeah.
helps because yet again, scores are made to be in the background, so I don't
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
while I'm editing. I can be.
Right. Oh, I'm a big scorer. Like I listen to scores like probably more than I've listened to like actual music recently. Because I don't say like scores aren't actual music. I don't want to get like
Yeah.
you know crucified or anything. But like absolutely I'm like obsessed with European scores of the 60s and 70s, especially. I mean, Ennio Morricone is kind of like my god, so I
Okay.
can listen to my god just endless amounts of Morricone.
I have the Thing soundtrack, but it's on CD.
Yeah, I mean that's an amazing soundtrack. I mean, regardless, because it doesn't the CD has I think a few of his like extras because
Yeah.
I know that Carpenter was like Morricone basically just made a score, and Carpenter pretty much took the synth stuff, and like there's a lot of string stuff actually
Mm-hmm.
that I think Tarantino used in like the Hateful Eight,
Yeah. Yeah.
at least some part of
I
it.
believe
But
that's
yeah,
right. Yeah. The
it's amazing. I mean, he's the maestro in my mind. I don't know if anybody beats him.
well, we joke around because we were I want the Dune soundtrack, but we make fun of Hans Zimmer because it's like, man, it just blows your eardrums. I was like, wow,
Yeah, that's kind
wow.
of like the route he ended up going down, which is interesting because like you look at some of his earlier scores are not so much like that. It's kind of
No.
like when he got into like the Nolan stuff, where it's like,
Oh yeah.
but yeah. I mean, I like Zimmer, but and like John Williams, like obviously I like all those greats, like um, Bernard Herrmann and stuff. I mean, Bernard Herrmann to me is like kind of like the American master. But Morricone, I mean, and then you got like Louise. I feel like I mispronounce his name all the time, but Bacalov, who's pretty much like if they couldn't get Morricone, they got him. So he did like the Django score. He did the Grand Duel. He kind of did like kind of I don't want to because I feel like I'm disparaging him, but he kind of did like Morricone ripoffs a little bit. But they're really good. They're
Oh
really good
yeah.
ripoffs.
Yeah. I'll tell you, there's. I keep buying uh, vinyl, which I actually had to take a break from because I just bought a big collection,
Right.
and now I'm like, maybe I should wait before I buy more. Like
Yeah.
100 more albums
Yeah.
I haven't even listened to, and my wife's like, maybe you should take a break.
Yeah, maybe you should like listen to him first.
Yeah, like,
Ooh, Christine.
yeah.
It's
Then I
been a
got
while since I've seen the action. Ooh, True Romance.
yeah.
It's classic. Yeah.
Um,
Who did the score for True Romance? I'm trying to
True
remember.
Romance is this
Or
is
is it just soundtrack album?
soundtrack is Hans Zimmer.
Oh, there you go. If the shoe fits.
There you go. There's the
Yeah.
lineup.
Hans Zimmer. Yeah. You got all the kind of the regular. Oh, Soundgarden. Forgot they're
Yeah,
in there.
and then there's the lineup of I don't know if you can see the
Yeah, I could kind of.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
You're So Cool, Hans Zimmer, Graceland, Charlie Sexton, In Dreams, John Waite,
Oh yeah.
Wounded Bird, Charlie and Eddie, I Want Your Body, Nymphomania, Stars at Dawn, Hans
Yeah.
Zimmer, I Need the Heart to Come for, I Need a Heart to Come Home to by Shelby Lynn,
Good old Shelby Lynn.
Love Is a Tender Trap by Robert Palmer,
Yeah.
Outshine by Soundgarden.
Yeah. We got to throw that in. That was very popular at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
The
amid
latest is.
the chaos on the day, Hans Zimmer
Yeah.
and Two Hearts by Chris Isaac. And I think it's funny that Aerosmith is prominently played in the movie, but not
And they're
on.
not on a. They're not. Yeah. That I've always found that like interesting. Like sometimes you buy a soundtrack album, and like one of the favorite songs you have on there isn't even on there. You're like, what?
Oh yeah.
Like, could they just like not get the rights to play it on the soundtrack album? I have no idea.
Well,
Like maybe the license.
I know that there's different rules for different things because we always used to joke around because Cruel Intention, not Cruel Intentions. Oh my the Stepford Kids, Disturbing
Ooh.
Behavior.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You always had flagpole sitter, that paranoid,
Yeah.
everybody's
Oh
coming to
yeah.
get me.
Yeah. Mhm.
Song does not appear in the movie.
Yeah.
It's only in the in the trailer, and not on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
And I'm
They're
like,
like, we wish it was in the
yeah,
movie.
but this is the one I am.
Oh, Blade Runner. There you go. I mean, that's just one of those scores, man.
Yeah. And I bought a friend's collection, and I was like, oh man, this is gonna suck because most of this stuff's gonna go in my own personal collection.
Yeah. So you sell a bunch of you sell a bunch of records at your shop too?
When I get them,
Yeah.
they come few and far between, and then when they sell, I don't get them as fast as they sell out. So
Right. I mean, they're like those soundtrack. I mean, I'm kind of a sucker for soundtrack albums. I mean, at least I was at the time. I was getting like a lot. Like I got the because they just like re-release them sometimes. They had like the Big Gun Down or just some stuff you would never think they would release on vinyl, and it's
well,
not good for a collector's kind of
well,
mindset or wallet.
Cleopatra Jones
Oh
soundtrack.
man, look at that! That's an amazing cover, by the way.
But the thing is,
Yeah.
I got Shaft and Superfly, and that's on
Oh
original
my
vinyl.
god! Yeah,
So
on original, yeah,
yeah,
those soundtracks are unbeatable. I mean, I love Superflies. Like I love Freddy's Dead. Yeah,
oh
this
yeah,
is great.
the
The whole
let me see if I can
soundtrack's
find
awesome.
that real quick. But
It's like wall to wall awesome.
oh man, they just they put out those awesome soundtracks,
Yeah,
and that was back when soundtracks would go
come and go
platinum.
if the yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Especially
Like
like Shaft, shoot, Isaac
yeah,
Hayes.
yeah, yeah.
Now
Plus Isaac
everybody,
Hayes is just awesome.
Jeff from freaking South Park. Mhm.
Yeah, and he escaped from New York,
Yep,
right? Yeah, he's
the,
what
the
does he
Duke of New
say?
York.
What does Donald Pleasance say at the end? I forget.
I know he's like freaks out. He's like, Duke of New York ain't number
Yeah,
one.
yeah, something like that. It's hilarious. Like Donald Pleasance is one of those guys. Is just like he is so much fun. Like
Well,
he's amazing.
we talk about Escape from New York. The funny thing about it is, I love the fact that they made up a backstory of why the president of the United States was English,
No, I
and they
know.
and they
they didn't
dumped it.
even they
They
dumped it. Yeah, like John Carpenter made a whole thing where like, oh, we actually went back to like the Revolutionary, something like that,
yeah,
and then they're just like, nah, just try to do an
no
American
one cares.
accent.
It's Tom
Yeah,
Pleasance. Everybody acknowledges it.
yeah. He's. I would. I mean, I love Donald Pleasant, but I don't know if I'd vote for him as president. The guy's a madman.
I just rewatched what the Monster Makers or the Freak Makers a while back.
Oh man, I don't think I've seen that one
Oh,
actually.
it's on Shutter.
Okay.
It's that weird time between when he was really hot and before
Yeah.
Halloween dropped.
Oh, so like kind of like Will Penny, your era kind of stuff.
Yeah, and the other villain in the movie is a monster. He's this deformed character, and it's Tom Baker, who would later go on to be,
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
Doctor
That's
Who. It's
crazy.
pre
Yeah.
Doctor Who Tom Baker.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's one of the ones that I didn't know about. It was on like the Last Drive-In, and I was
Yeah.
trying to get caught up on the Last Drive-In, and I watched it, and I was like, wow, this is
Yeah, this is amazing. It's just like I love kind of like I feel like this is sort of a lost art. If at least for some actors. Some actors still kind of maintain this, but kind of the hammy acting. I feel like hammy acting is so underrated nowadays. Where when people see it, like, oh, that's just silly. Like for instance, the Raven with Bela Lugosi,
mhm.
like he is having like the time of his life.
Oh yeah.
Just, he loves torture. He can't get enough, and he'll let you know it the entire time.
Well, I think the actor right now that I think can still play Hammy, and he was great in um Birds of Prey, was Ewan McGregor playing Black Mask.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? He actually can pull it off. And I mean, of course, you have people like Nicolas Cage who kind of still are in that mode
Hmm.
of kind of. I mean, he can downplay too, but he definitely likes kind of he respects. I feel that kind of hammier more theatrical acting. Like I was watching before this Mad Love of Peter Lorre, and Peter Lorre is just one of those great hammy guys because first of all he's got those bug eyes. He's amazing, and he just looks incredible. He sounds incredible. It's just they just don't make actors like that anymore. I
No.
don't want to like bemoan the old days, but they just don't.
Him in the Black Cat.
Yeah, Tales of Terror.
Yeah, Tales of
Yeah,
Terror. Yeah, where
yeah,
the Black Cat segment, and he's just oh,
yeah,
plays it over the top, and he
yeah.
it's worked so well. Yet
Oh
again,
yeah.
then you got Vincent Price too at the same time. So
Oh my, I love the House on Haunted Hill back there. I love William Castle and I love you know Vincent Price, of course. I mean, he's just such a like an icon, kind of like this season too. Like whenever you like think of Halloween or like kind of like more gothic horror, like he's just the man. Like he just had this like voice, and he was American, but he sounded like very. I don't know. He almost sounded like of a different time.
yeah, making movies for Hammer and doing the British.
Yeah.
He fit perfectly in. You would
Yeah.
never, yeah,
You wouldn't know the
not American.
Corman pictures between the Hammer pictures, really. Like I feel like when I watch like a Hammer film, I feel like I'm watching like a Corman film half the time because they just kind of have that like kind of like same aesthetic, same like look, like kind of the vibrant colors and like the blood is always super red. It's
Oh yeah,
like the most red, and uh, yeah, I love the Hammer stuff, like the Christopher Lee, and I think that Peter Cushing is just amazing as both Van Helsing and Dr. Frankenstein. Yeah, he's easily the best both of those characters, I think, because he's just like so out there.
Oh yeah. Well, we had a thing. Was it last year on Halloween or something like that? I go.
Yeah.
Was it some strong opinion. I was like, I believe Christopher Lee's a better Dracula than Bela Lugosi. And
Oh
of course,
yeah,
everybody
fair.
freaked
That's
out. I'm
fair.
like, the thing is, Bela Lugosi was only Dracula twice
Right.
in the movies. We did, stage plays. I was like,
Yeah.
Christopher Lee did Dracula a lot.
He did do it a lot, and it's honestly hard for me because I feel like Bela Lugosi's legacy of for Dracula is just it's sort of unmatched in a way because like he definitely created popular culture's idea
Mm-hmm.
of Dracula. Like even if you go to everybody does the Widow's Peak and kind of like the cape and the medallion and all that stuff. That's all like very much kind of like his creation. But I will kind of agree with you where I think Christopher Lee is just he's a very vicious kind of like scary Dracula where he's a lot more intimidating. Like if you watch the old 1931 Dracula, like no, I like obviously it's a classic and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not disparaging it at all. And I grew up with that one. Like that's the one I watched first probably. But when you watch like the Hammer one, there's really no comparison. I mean, the horror of Dracula is so much better than the Universal one.
Well, I'm also one of the people that I really like the Spanish language Dracula that they filmed.
See, I actually haven't seen that one, and I need to because I've heard that one's really good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's funny knowing full well they filmed it on the same sets at night
yeah.
with all Spanish language. And don't get me wrong, Dracula looks a little weird, but
If you get past that, you're
no offense against the guy, but he was
yeah,
definitely not the part for Dracula.
right.
But when they brought, I hate this is another one when they brought the Spanish speaking ladies to the set
Uh-huh.
for the Brides of Dracula, far more attractive.
Yeah. I can believe that. I mean, I definitely got because I think they have both
It's on
on
the same. I know if you buy
the collection, the Dracula
yeah,
collection.
the
Yeah,
DVD and then the Blu-ray has it on there,
yeah,
and then the DVD box set that had all the Dracula
sure, yeah,
Universal movies. It's on
yeah,
there too. Yeah.
yeah. I think I definitely have one of those. Like, 'cause I got that when I was a kid. Like, we were they were at like Target or something. It was just kind of it had Bela Lugosi on the cover. They had the Frankenstein one, the Wolf Man, like Visible Man, the Mummy. Just basically all of them,
Mm-hmm.
and And like I do have a love for kind of the Universal monster movies. I mean, they are kind of just that. I feel like they kind of like they almost introduce you to kind of like what like kind of just the horror genre because
Well,
I feel like that's just kind of what you first watch, like it's just one of those things.
I heard the best explanation to Universal monsters was it's horror 101.
Yes,
It,
yes, yeah.
it is the introduction to so many people, and I went back this year and I've been rewatching the Universal and Hammer movies a lot lately.
Oh yeah.
And the ones that I didn't really watch a lot of, so I'm rewatching the Invisible Man. I'm
Mhm.
rewatching
Invisible
Son
Man's
of
really good.
Dracula and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Those were great. The
Yeah.
later Mummy movies,
Yeah.
not necessarily the best, but what they did with them was really surprising.
Yeah, right.
I can't remember which one it is, but they legitimately go through and take the eyes out of every frame.
Really.
So the mummy's eyes, when he turns around, they're just empty
Oh,
sockets.
it's just empty sockets. That's
Yeah,
actually a really cool effect, especially for like back then. Like what they did with the Invisible Man too, like when he did that whole
yeah. Unravel.
unraveling of his revealing he's the Invisible Man. Like I mean, I'm sure I just haven't done the research, but I don't really know how they did that. I mean, like especially with kind of like the technology that they had at the time, and kind of like the film stock and lenses they were working with. Like I have no idea,
Well,
but
I know one of them is legitimately they have the guy's hands and then they got a head and they're unwrapping it.
yeah,
And but like when he's running down the street and he's pulling off his clothes and stuff like that,
yeah, oh
it's
yeah,
like this is crazy. I mean,
I know.
a low budget guy couldn't do that now.
No, no, I mean, if you told me I had to do that right now, I would not know how to do it. And I have much more technology at my disposal. And
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not even a huge production company like they were, like Universal Studio. I
I
mean,
have more
amazing.
technology here to make a movie
Seriously.
than they had in everything, and I still can't edit out people.
No, 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 of course not. But I mean, I feel like you have to have, I think like I've heard it said before, it's like gateway horror.
Mhm.
It's like kind of like what introduces you. And I feel like you almost have to have just such a level of reverence and respect for those,
Yep.
because it's just, they invented popular culture's idea of Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, Invisible, like all those things that we just take for granted now. Like we just think, oh, it's commonplace. Like this is how Frankenstein looks. That's not how Frankenstein
No,
looked in the
Frankenstein's
book.
nothing like that in the book. And
No,
I remember I read, but I remember, I grew up on the Frankenstein, Dracula, stuff like that. And then I wasn't until I want to say junior high, maybe freshman year in high school, I actually sat down and read Frankenstein.
right.
And I'm like, wow, this is way different.
It's totally different.
I mean, because he's literate and he's
Yeah,
he's not.
he's much more human
Yeah.
than the film, or at
Mhm.
least the Universal films. Like and even the Hammer thing took that. Like they pretty much ran with that. Like the Christopher Lee, Frankenstein movie. Is it the Curse of Frankenstein? I can't remember. It's some title like that.
I thought it was like House of Frankenstein or something.
Maybe something like that. I think there's definitely one call. But yeah, the one with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing.
Hmm.
Uh, they still kind of like play off that Boris Karloff kind of brainless kind of monster that's kind of wandering around. He's green. He's got bolts. So I mean, they definitely still took that kind of look, aesthetic, and the whole just the whole thing. And what I really like about the Hammer one in particular is that they kind of ran with the idea that Dr. Frankenstein was always the villain. Like in Bride of Frankenstein and in every single one, the is it Colin Clyde, like he was definitely the villain. Like, and he always got away scot free.
Hmm.
You're like, dude, somebody punish this man because he is the monster.
Oh yeah.
But oh my god, he's horrible.
Peter Cushing got away, but he'd always get his comeuppance at
Yeah,
the end of
right.
the book. Yeah.
But
Uh,
you kind of relished in his villainous kind of antics. He was
Well,
kind of funny when he was doing
what
it.
was it? There's the little thing on that David Harbour does, Frankenstein's Monster's Monster,
Oh yeah.
and it's told that, hey, Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein's the monster, not
Yeah.
the monster is not the monster. Frankenstein's the monster.
Oh well, totally, like 100%. He's like Dr. Frankenstein, and that's even the intention of the book. If you like read into the book, it's definitely that he's kind of the monster. Playing God is kind of dangerous. Like and you got to live with that. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting stuff.
Watches YouTube, and some of the videos are nice and quiet, and other ones are
Yeah,
super loud.
that's just the volume quality of YouTube. It's like one video will be average to moderate, and then you turn on one video, it's like all the way up here. It's like, geez.
Well, I had to go through, and I film everything the same way. I use the same
Yeah.
mic, the same camera, everything. Um, Almost the same distance with my mic to me when I film the other shows. Um,
Yeah.
the volume, when I transfer it over, and I don't know what it is, my interview shows the volume's fine.
Yeah.
On my other shows, I have to turn the volume way up.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
like
interesting. Yeah.
legitimately, when I get done with this one, I might have to tweak the volume just a tad bit.
Yeah.
I have to go from 100% to almost 300%,
Damn.
and I don't know why. And it's legitimately exact same setup, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, sound is such a fickle thing. Like I like that's that I've learned that of my filmmaking. It's like sound is something you do not want to like kind of like skip over because it
Well,
can be the difference between like a bad movie quality and a good movie quality.
I was just watching a movie the other day, and this was a high quality movie, and there's a
Yeah.
part of the movie where the sound is awful,
Yeah.
and like the people are talking, and you can barely hear them, and you cannot make it. And as I've gotten older, my hearing's not the best, anyways.
Yeah.
I tend to watch stuff with subtitles on. My son got me watching it,
Right.
so I'm legitimately going, "Oh, that's what she's saying."
Yeah. Right. I mean, subtitles. I mean, I know my brother's like big into that. My older brother, he always turns subtitles on, and like I would whenever I like kind of watch something, the subtitles are. I'm like, oh, he must watch TV. I'm like, okay, I guess and then I turn it off, but maybe one day I'll kind of be the subtitle guy because you do understand stuff a little more.
Oh yeah, it's
Also,
and it was purely accidental. Like I said, my son, he likes everything kind of quiet,
mhm.
and he would always turn it on, and I just stopped turning it off. And
Right?
then I got to where I
Yeah,
was just like
you got
watching it, and I'm
accustomed
like,
to it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I can see that for sure. It's kind of nice because like especially if you watch like an English film or something like a Brit from England or Britain or UK, it's sometimes hard to understand them. So it's nice to just turn that on and be able to clearly see what they're saying.
well, that's if the subtitles actually catches it. I was watching one a couple days ago, and it was legitimately wrong because all it was doing was getting close to what they were saying.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
yeah. That definitely happens from time to time, especially if it's not like actually synced with the film. It's
yeah,
just like kind of guessing what they're saying. So yeah, and they definitely got some different lingo too. So you got to kind of adjust.
so well, going back to your list
Yeah.
though, have you, other than Carnival of Souls, have you found any other movies that you missed?
Oh man, I'm trying to think back at like some of the newer things I watched. So I did watch the Werner Herzog version of Nosferatu because I was kind of doing a Dracula week,
Mhm.
and I was kind of ranking like I was pretty much taking five films. Obviously, there's been more
Yeah,
Dracula films made, but out of like I took like five, like not like any sequels or anything, just straight up the narrative of Dracula films, like the very first one in the series or whatever. So I got to the Nosferatu, the Werner Herzog one, and I mean, I'm a huge fan of Werner Herzog, so I mean, him doing Nosferatu was very compelling to me. It just took me a while to kind of get around to it. And yeah, I mean, I loved it. I mean, he was a better fit for filling in the shoes of Max Schreck than Klaus Kinski. I mean, the guy is. And first of all, they barely had to put any makeup on him because he just looks a certain way already. And all you gotta do is shave his head, paint him white. He just looks great.
We had the Werner Herzog Klaus Kinski discussion a while back. It's like, how would you like to be the two guys who despised each other?
Yeah, right.
Who didn't make movies together because they
Yeah.
knew that they were both going to make good movies, even though they
Yeah.
both hated each other.
Yeah, it's amazing like how much, especially you watch his documentary My Best Fiend, how much they really like it was adversarial, like just butting heads constantly. And of course, both were kind of mad, like Klaus a little more so. I think Werner Herzog at older age, he's kind of gotten a little more calm. But I think when he's younger, he was definitely just, I'm making this film. I don't care if I have to drag a whole boat across a mountain. Like I'm making this film in the Amazon. Like he was just crazy. So like those two, it's great to watch, but I'm sure what it was hell on set. I can only imagine,
It's like we have also the discussion. It's like, how would you? No one ever in my life did I think Werner Herzog would be in a Star Wars related property.
Right?
I was like,
Yeah.
I have the figure somewhere.
Yeah.
I have.
Well, I want it because I'm like, I need a figure of Werner Herzog,
That's where I'm. All right, but we have. It's funny because my son, my older sons, is big into film and he likes learning about stuff and
yeah.
We have the discussion about Werner Herzog and Klaus Kinski and I was like, the fact that they made Fritz Carlotto, there's like, and they actually did drag a boat up.
I know, yeah, with like real like native workers too.
Yeah,
all like what's really interesting about especially his take on Nosferatu is that you definitely see the Werner Herzog angle there because he's very into anthropology and like all of his films, and it's the first like Dracula / Nosferatu movie that I've seen that actually the kind of like the Romanian gypsies kind of actually are Romanian gypsies, and they're like he's actually like kind of like investigating their culture while also kind of making a straight up genre film, because he wasn't, I wouldn't call Werner Herzog a genre filmmaker necessarily, but he kind of transcends that. But his Nosferatu is excellent. Of course, like the score and Klaus. I mean, and just kind of like the way he uses like all the rats. It's just like I wouldn't want to be on one of his films because I hate mice, I hate rats. So I mean, that film would have been like brutal for me because they're just all over the place. They're just and it was pretty much like his dedication to kind of F.W. Murnau and kind of like German cinema. There's this really good thing on YouTube. YouTube's such a great like treasure trove of stuff.
Oh yeah.
But there's this excellent it's almost an hour-long featurette of him making Nosferatu in '79. And it's just basically talking about him and kind of like the new German cinema, and kind of this is his ode to old German cinema, which he felt kind of like died after World War II. And he said he's like, oh, I grew up in a fatherless country, and like my father is pretty much F.W. Murnau of the German cinema. So it's really interesting. It's really cool. And yeah, I mean Nosferatu, of course. I don't know if you saw, but Robert Eggers is actually, I think, pretty much confirmed to make his version. So I'm very interested to see that because we'll go from pretty much three pretty great filmmakers, having their take on the story, and of course, like I think Murnau's kind of like. I hate making big claims like this, but Murnau's maybe like the father of horror. If you really kind of like trauma, at least if you really trace it back.
Because Murnau did Faust, he did
Faust,
Nosferatu,
and M.
Yeah,
or that Fritz Lang.
Fritz Lang did M. Yeah,
my bad. Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank on the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
I don't believe that was
That's
Marnell.
not him, but
Yeah, but it's that the German, kind of like
it's
German Gothic,
mhm,
kind of that German expressionism is
mhm.
kind of like the foundation for horror, you
Yeah,
know,
and
for sure.
I'm a sucker for Shadow of the Vampire with
I
William.
want to watch that so bad because like I haven't not seen it yet, and it seems like such a like a cool movie because it's kind of like
The fact that Max Shrek was always a vampire the whole
right,
time.
yeah, which is like definitely a cool like little like urban legend because the guy, I mean, still to this day that makeup is just so great, like an iconic, and nobody's ever, you know how like Dracula's look changes all the time,
Hmm.
like, but when anybody does Nosferatu, they don't change a single thing because like it's perfect, it's
And
amazing.
I went back and rewatched Nosferatu a while back.
Yeah,
Yet again when it was on Last Drive-In because they did both of them. They did the
right.
original and then they did the Werner Herzog version.
Yeah,
And I'm watching that again for I don't know the first time in about 5 years,
yeah.
and I'm just like, they did not have that good of makeup back then.
No, no, it's like the like infancy of everything,
Yeah,
really.
and because you look at the um, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde makeup. You
Yeah,
look at the Frankenstein's monster makeup, the
yeah,
Edison, and you're like, that's, you can tell. Obviously, it's
right.
just,
It's before Lon Chaney,
yeah,
or like kind of like around the same
that's
time.
yeah, it's around Lon Chaney because Lon
Yeah,
Chaney was still putting out like was doing Unholy 3 and
right. Yeah,
and you're going back and you did Phantom and
Hunchback,
Hunchback, yeah.
yeah,
Um, in the Phantom, it's like knowing full well that he's just got strings holding his nose up,
yeah.
going back, and now we've got the really good crisp, clear versions of it.
Sure, yeah,
Trying to see the
yeah. We
man,
don't want to see the crisp clear.
I tell me this is where I'm at on my monster movies, and especially Godzilla movies.
Yeah,
I stopped at DVD on my Godzilla movies.
yeah,
And my friend, I do have some on Blu-ray, but
yeah.
I only watched the ones on DVD. I was like, and they're like, why? And I was like, because they're not as crisp and clear. You don't see
Yeah.
the strings. You don't.
Some films it doesn't help. Like
Yeah,
some films, like it, honestly, they were working in a medium where they knew I can get away with this because it's not going to pick this up on this
yeah,
film stock, or it's not going to pick this up on whatever they were shooting on. So I mean, they didn't want it HD. They
no,
wanted like high definition. They were working in a certain medium that they could get away with certain things. So I mean, absolutely. I would stop. I mean, those Godzilla movies, like what always, like, obviously, you could say it's about a lot of horror movies. Like what is very sad is like, and I hope that younger generations come to realize this, is that like, yeah, they could be laughable at times, but like there's something so like charming about all of those types of movies where like somebody's just in a suit ruining a fake, Tokyo. Like that's just so much more fun
yeah.
for me, at least, than like some CGI bow 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 like fest where it's just like, oh my god, like, okay, a computer programmer is behind his computer, and just there's just nothing tactile or physical about it. It's just, they bore me. Frankly, like kind of like the just like nonstop CGI fights. Like, I that used to excite me, I guess, when I was like kind of a kid and stuff like that. Like I used to like with the Peter Jackson, which I like that movie, King Kong, but
Mhm.
like I much prefer the just the original, because like it's just that, just seeing that kind of like puppet, and it's just so much more fun. I don't know, at least for me.
Well, I, do I believe there there's what I call the popcorn, the big budget movies and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And CGI in them, I get it's fine. I
Mhm.
kind of I accept it. I'm a Marvel fan, so I love my Marvel
Yeah.
movies and I go back and watch those. And I get it's all CGI. Going back and watching them walk around in the big suits
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
to do the CGI on, it's whatever. But
Yeah.
when you get below a certain budget, I believe that the ratio to, okay, you're spending X amount on CGI, the quality is down here, but
Yeah.
that quality on practical effects still stays the same
Yeah.
because it's there's almost always somebody in there that can do it a decent job for a relatively cheap price
Yeah.
because there's always people learning, and
Yeah.
that
Of
gives
course.
them steps, and it can you're always going to have new people in the thing. So
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't want to like diverge too much in the CGI and stuff, but I almost feel like CGI is getting like worse. I don't know. Like
backtracking, it is.
it's backtrack. I've heard that like there's some films where you watch from maybe like a decade ago and the CGI looks pretty great, and then there's like the most recent, you know, like that like one She-Hulk show. Like I felt like the CGI was just not good.
I think the CG. I think when it comes down to She-Hulk, it comes down to the fact is that it is a TV show,
Yeah.
and they even make fun of it how expensive it is to CGI
Right.
her every time.
Right. That's probably it. But
And
it's
they
just
have
funny.
they have a girl on set, and she's a big, tall, muscular
Right.
woman, and they
Yeah.
just CGI her face onto the stand-in, and I'm like, okay, well that works, but it's still, I went back and we had the discussion about the Jurassic Park in '93,
It
how
looks
good
great. It
that
looks so
still holds
good.
up.
Yeah.
But what was the movie that came out a few years later, the Godzilla movie
Yeah.
was looked bad.
What the like the Roland Emmerich one? Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
and somebody pointed out they're like the new Matrix movie that came out last year
Yeah.
didn't look as good as the movie that came out in '99.
I know it's so weird. I feel like it's definitely backtracking in a way, and I don't. I think it's I don't want to say. I almost want to say early in those early days. I feel like CGI had something to prove, maybe, or
Yeah,
like
I
it
think
was
people
like
had more passion behind it. Yeah.
yeah, it's like let's see how far we can take this. Let's see what we can achieve with CGI. And I feel like the wonder of CGI is gone now
Mm-hmm.
for viewers. Like I watch, like you said, like one of the bigger like Marvel releases and like those big CGI fights are like I should be amazed by those. I should be like, oh my god. But for some reason I'm not. I'm almost like desensitized to it where it's like I don't, I'm just like, okay.
Well, we laugh because somebody tried to give me crap a while back, and they're like, "Oh, you're just mad because I don't much care for the Joker movie. I just
Right.
think
Yeah.
it was
No,
necessary."
I'm totally with you there.
Yeah,
It's a Scorsese
yeah, it
rip
was.
off. Yeah.
But I was sitting there doing that, and they go, "Oh, well, you're just a Marvel guy, and so you're gonna love, Endgame is the it be all end all." And I'm like, no,
Sure.
I was like,
Yeah.
literally, my two favorite comic book movies, my favorite straight Marvel movie is
Mhm.
uh Winter Soldier.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Which,
that one's probably one of the more like self-contained
yeah,
kind of like,
it's really grounded for the most
yeah.
part. It's a spy thriller for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And then the other one's Logan. The
Well, I
last
love
one,
Logan. Yeah.
yeah,
That one's awesome.
and yet again, not huge amount of special effects, not a huge
No,
amount.
it's kind of like a sci-fi Western type
Yeah,
deal. It's
it,
really
it,
good.
it's
That one's good.
definitely the Unforgiven
Of the
of the
kind of like the
comic book movies.
Marvel. Yeah,
He's
for sure.
he's the old gunfighter who's going out one
Yeah.
last time,
Yeah, it's
knowing
good
full
stuff.
well he's not coming back. So
Oh yeah. Plus they play Johnny Cash at the end, it's definitely got that it's got that whole and they even play Shane, like
mhm.
in the movie. So it's definitely drawing back to kind of that, that narrative of the reformed gunfighter who's trying to live a straight path and who can't because he is
He's
who he is.
yep. And like I said, I went and seen the Black Adam movie a couple days ago,
Mhm.
and everybody's like, "Oh, I hear it." I'm like, "It's a popcorn movie." I went in knowing
Yeah,
full
for
well it's a
sure.
popcorn movie. I'm not going to go in looking for a work of art. If I want to do
Yeah.
that, there's a ton of movies online that I'd be watching before I'd watch this one.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's there's always so I'm kind of in the under belief that like I was having this conversation with my girlfriend the other day. I was like, I don't really like the term artsy movie,
Mm.
like because to me all films are arts.
Hmm.
Like to me, Black Adam is art, and then Martin Scorsese is art. They're
Hmm.
all arts,
Yeah,
but there's high and low arts.
yeah.
So I mean, like, I don't believe in the term like artsy necessarily because I'm like, well, there's just films that just have more of a stamp on it. There's films that have more of a personality. There's films that have more of an auteur's eye. It has more of an auteur's vision. Whereas a Black Adam has really no auteur to speak of. I haven't seen it, but I'm just
It's
assuming
a
it's
rock movie. It's a Dwayne
yeah,
Johnson
yeah,
rock movie. Yeah.
yeah. It's the Dwayne the Rock Johnson movie. For that's a movie for like if you don't like I'm getting to a point where I'm not getting frustrated anymore by these types of it. I'm just like, listen, those are for people who want to go see it. I'm perfectly fine. People want to go see it. Like, is it a movie for me? No, but like I don't. It's those films have the right to exist just as much as a small scale film
Hmm.
has the right to exist. I'm more of a like like I kind of like those kind of the more like I said auteur driven kind of like lower lower budgeted kind
Hmm.
of more like character pieces or stuff like that. I that's kind of like more where my mind is as a filmmaker as well. But like if you think about it, I mean, some of our favorite films were absolutely popcorn movies. I mean, they're like one of my favorite films is Jaws, just
Hmm.
because like it's like to me, Jaws is everything Hollywood has ever done right, and what does best is in that movie. It's pure entertainment,
Yep.
but it also has character. It also has that USS Indianapolis scene that is not in movies today. Like that's what I think is the main issue. I would be completely fine if like there's there's a like the equivalent of a USS Indianapolis film stuck in one of those kind of like Black Adam movies, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because that film is just that scene. I think is really. I think I don't want to put something on one single scene, but that scene turned Jaws from like a movie into the greatest movie. You know what I mean? It at least for me. Like I don't know. I may be just rambling, but I think there's something to be said about just like that film because it has that scene and it has characters like Quint. It has characters like Brody and just characters that you like really care about and you can get behind. And I think like some films are just lacking that today. I don't know.
When it comes to movies, I'm it's all about what I feel like watching that day.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, you know, I have a friend who will never anything's got subtitles, he's out. It's
Yeah.
whatever. Um, and one day he would come in and me and my son were watching Stalker,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he just kind of like, what are you watching? I was like, I know
Yeah.
you're not gonna watch this. It's
Right. It's got
Russian.
subtitles.
It's a
Yeah.
sci-fi movie where nothing really happens.
Right.
And I was like, it's all character driven. I was like, it's super. I know
It's
it's not
very
low budget, but it is.
dreamlike. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's well, yeah, it looks like nothing
yeah.
else. Yeah, like I think that's probably why he was like so drawn to it because like I feel like I just when I first heard of soccer, like I remember just like watching a YouTube clip or something and like the just like a couple of seconds of the film was playing. I was like, that looks like nothing I've ever
Hmm.
seen. Just the way it's shot and
Yeah.
and all that a lot of those Soviet movies from that time, like especially Tarkovsky. But there's this film called and we can get into this like kind of like horror movies that aren't really horror movies but are actually terrifying.
Oh yeah.
Is I don't know if you've heard of it or seen it, but Come and See. Um, it's a Soviet film made in the 80s, and it takes place during World War II. It's basically about a Soviet child who kind of like leaves home to join the resistance fighters. But my God, like if after this, like if you just want to like look up like images of it, it's one of the most like harrowing, horrific movies you'll ever see in your life. And it's just the way it's presented. It's incredibly dreamlike, a lot like Stalker. It's if you like Stalker, Come and See should be on your list because it's incredibly shocking. Like like if you think like Hollywood does not touch like Schindler's List, it does not even touch what Come and See does. It's so horrific. But it's just the way it's presented that is the most horrific, I'd say.
I'll check that out. Well,
Yeah.
the one that I think that is never presented as a horror movie, and it's almost presented like a I don't know what it's Threads, the British.
Yes, I've heard of. I have not seen Threads, but like I've heard it's if you like I've because I'm a big fan of Come and See. Like if you like Come and See, you'll like Threads. So like vice versa. I'll watch Threads, you watch Come and See.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. But
Yeah.
yeah, Threads is a nuclear attack, and
Yeah.
it jumps, and it's the people falling apart, and it just sort of ends the way it ends, and you're just like,
Yeah, like holy shit. Yeah.
what's going to happen with this, and
Right.
I remember watching it as a kid and didn't get it. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it appeared, I think, on Shudder, and I was like, oh, I want to rewatch this. And I rewatched it, and I'm like, wow, that's
Yeah.
that is a work that would, and it's listed, I think, one of the top 10 disturbing movies that's not a horror movie. I think it's right
Right.
up there.
And you know that's so funny because like I feel like some of the most disturbing films I've seen are not horror movies. Which is kind of weird because there's this film called Elephant, which is it was a Gus Van Sant film. It's basically about the Columbine shooting.
Yeah.
But it the way it kind of like the way the camera's moving, like you feel like the shooting could start any minute. And like he does that so well where you basically just follow like maybe girls into the cafeteria
Mm-hmm.
and they're just having everyday conversation. You're following them for so long. You're like, okay, something is going to happen. Like he's playing with how you think of movies.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you, of course, like when you see somebody followed for a really long time, you think, oh shit, something's bad's gonna happen. And then he fucks with you and he goes to something else.
Yep.
And then like just like the way he shows kind of like his version of the Columbine shooters is very disturbing and it's unsettling and like I felt worse after that movie than I have watching something that was purposely trying to scare me. Like it just disturbed the hell out of me, and it's very and I saw that you had Daniel Roebuck on your show.
Yeah.
And he was in a film called River's Edge.
Yeah.
With Keanu Reeves,
Yep.
and that film, it's disturbing as hell because he like like it's such an interesting movie. That movie, first of all, that movie is not talked about enough, but he's great in it. Crispin Glover's insane in it, and Dennis Hopper's so weird in it. It's just like one of the weirdest movies you'll ever see. But it's such a what I like about it is that he strangles that woman by the river, of course, and you never understand why. Like he just did, and he's a killer.
You don't always get the answer, and
yeah,
that's what was it? We were talking about a movie. I can't remember what movie it was, but we're talking about movies that they don't give you the answer to, and I was like, well, because in real life you don't always get the answer.
Yeah, right.
There's people who've that were murderers and killed people, and they'll admit they killed people, and they're like, well, why'd you do it?
Yeah.
And they don't say nothing, and they die in the electric chair and keeping that secret.
They just kill. I mean, I was watching the other day, just kind of like a documentary on Albert Fish.
Yeah.
And my God, that guy was like, what has happened in real life does not even touch what horror like. He was horrific. I mean, like the stuff he would write to the victims' mothers and or families. And
Yep.
it was just, oh my god, like it's worse than any horror film you could ever experience.
And
It's horrible. I
yeah,
mean, it's a
that's
life though.
that's a guy that people kind of forgot about because he just
Yeah,
kind of fell in. Everybody knows like your Bundys, Gacy's, and stuff like that. But Albert Fish, I think it was probably the worst of all of them.
I would argue that, but I think it's just because it happened so long ago,
Mm-hmm.
where people are like, I feel like people almost have this vision of times past where they think it's so innocent. Like it nothing like they didn't talk like that. But when you read his letters, he talks like a sailor. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's like saying horrendous things that you wouldn't think would come out of somebody's mouth in like the 1910s or 20s. Like, but it absolutely did. I mean, he
Well,
was a sick individual.
was he the one? He was the one that wrote. Oh, he goes. I killed her and ate her, but I never molested her,
Yeah,
and
he said I
take
never.
solace
I
in
said
that.
he
Yeah,
said
and I'm
I
like,
never like fucked her. I'm like, oh my god, like it's horrendous. Like I don't even want to repeat the stuff he said because it's just like it's horrible. I mean, if you want to figure it out, it's like
yeah, yeah. Go look
yeah,
up a documentary on Albert Fish. There,
yeah,
read any book on him. He
right,
is
yeah. It's
horrific.
horrible. It's horrible, and yeah. I mean, like obviously, no film can really capture the how horrific some of that stuff is because it's just too horrific.
Oh yeah,
Like you don't want to watch a movie about that.
no.
It's just like there's this filmmaker called his name is Michael Haneke, and he's made films that are like quasi horror films. I feel like The Piano Teacher, Funny Games,
Yeah,
and Benny's Video. Uh, they're honestly more disturbing than any horror film in my opinion because he like just he's like he doesn't give answers like and then in Benny's Video, not to spoil anything, but Benny is obsessive. He's voyeuristic. He wants to record everything,
mm-hmm.
and he invites this girl over to his apartment while his parents are away, and he just kills her. And um, and it's horrific how he kills her. It's so slow and agonizing, and it's just like just playing on the VHS. And when he kills her, his parents are like, "Why did you do it?" And he's just like, "I don't know." And then he turns himself in at the end, and his parents get in trouble because they cover up the murder for him. And like you don't know why he turns himself. It's just like he's just very interesting filmmaker when it comes to that stuff because he doesn't give you answers. He's just telling you this is life. This is how people actually are.
Bad stuff happens to good people, and there's not always an answer for why it happens.
No, and people kill for indiscriminate reasons. Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't know why. Most serial killers just kill because they have a desire to kill. Like it's just that's all it is. It's
Oh yeah,
and I think Hitchcock kind of delved into that like kind of early on in his films. Um like Psycho, like Frenzy, or my favorite Strangers on a Train. Like was it Robert Wagner? He's so crazy in that movie. he kind of like he never really gave reasons why they killed. You know, like he would just be like, yeah, this guy just likes to kill.
well, there is a lot of what the current filmmaking. You they want that answer. They want to
Yeah,
know why they do this. They want to know, and if you don't get it, they're like, "Oh, that's horrible. Why they didn't give us any answers?"
right.
Like real life, you don't get answers.
No, yeah. Nor do I want them in films either. Like it's far more. I think that's why people had a problem with like I guess the Rob Zombie Halloween movies at the
Mm-hmm.
time because like he was giving a reason why
Yeah.
Michael Myers was killing, and rather than like the original Halloween where it's just like an indiscriminate killer
Yep.
who's just out on the prowl.
Oh yeah. The
So
I've been rewatching because I watched the new Halloween movie, which people hated, and
yeah.
I didn't mind it. I got it. It's a loophole movie.
It's a loophole. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, like it was it what I was expecting when I went in the theater? Absolutely not. I mean,
It,
so
it- but
achieved something there.
as I tell people, I was like, well, if they kill him off here and they actually kill him off, I was like, there's three other continuities they can work with. So
That's true. Yeah, they can remake the originals. The Rob Zombie can do it.
well, I just did the interview with Gary Tunnicliffe, and
Yeah,
he was working on Halloween 3D.
really.
Yeah, he
Okay.
was
Yeah.
working on it. They were already in the pre-production, and they were like, nope, funding's gone. And you're just like,
Okay.
wow. And he's like, you don't understand how close and how far we've been into movies that have gotten canceled.
Oh my God, I'm sure it happens constantly.
And he's like, yeah, we'd already went and scouted locations and did all this stuff, and it's gone. Uh,
That's like that's kind of how the studio system works. It's like because they just have they'll literally pay like pretty large sums of money just to buy a script,
mm-hmm.
just so and it's like just sitting on shelves for like decades, you know.
Oh,
and it's just like nobody's ever touched it, you know. Like the original Scream was, I know that was a hot script at the time, like the Scary Movie by Kevin Williamson, but that one was like there's like a bidding war and all that. So it just things don't get developed at times. It's just interesting how all that works. I don't know, but it's something I probably would like to avoid if I can.
well, an acquaintance of mine, he's a comic book artist, created characters and stuff like that. He goes, my book, Gunfighters from Hell, has been optioned like 5 times.
Yeah.
He goes, I have all the paperwork. He goes, sitting in a filing cabinet in my closet over there. And he goes, you know how much that's worth to me? He said, not a damn thing.
Right. Yeah. Because like it's so crazy. Because I don't know if you're familiar with the filmmaker S. Craig Zahler. He did Bone Tomahawk.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I know, like I was listening to him on a podcast once, and apparently he's had several of his like books like all optioned and like on the market, but like they haven't been made yet, you know. So it's just, will they ever be made? I don't know. It's just, and there's some books that are optioned before they're even published.
Yeah.
So they're just like, oh, Stephen King's coming out with something. Let's just do that now.
I have a bunch of comic books that there's one called Stray Dogs. Stray Dogs was
Yeah.
optioned before the first issue came out.
Right. Yeah, because they just know like this is promising.
Yeah, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wow. I was like, what would you do? Well, that's one of the issues they ran into with uh, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh yeah.
They were
Yeah.
already working on the movie, and the book wasn't even done yet, so it had no
Right.
ending. So,
Right.
which the movie has absolutely nothing to do with the comic, anyways.
Yeah. Alan Quartermain.
Yeah, you get there's a lot of these books
Yeah.
that they've already optioned, and they're like, it has no ending.
No.
I'm a fan of the comic book called Faust. They did
Yeah.
the Stuart Gordon and them guys did the movie back in the day,
Right.
and that movie, the comic book ended relatively recently
Right.
because they were only putting out like an issue, maybe like one issue a year, maybe two issues
Yeah.
a year, and that had been running since I was in high school, and it just ended, and my kids were in high school, so
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it's been around for
yeah.
quite some time. Yeah. That's the one with the mice, right? Or is that something else? Something
No,
else?
no. Faust is a no, it's definitely not mice. It is a brutal, hard, X-rated comic book about a guy who basically makes a deal. He's
So it's like the old Faust legend.
yeah,
Kind
yeah.
of.
It's
Yeah.
definitely the Faust legend, and
Yeah.
they introduce all these characters. This guy ends up becoming this like Avenger type character.
Oh damn.
He has these like claws. He's like almost a Wolverine like claws that come out
Oh
of his
cool.
hands,
Yeah.
but it's all, the devil's the main character.
Yeah.
He was an artist. He basically his psychiatrist falls in love with him. He's already mentally messed up. Then he
Yeah.
becomes the yeah. It's
I gotta check that out. That's very intriguing. I mean,
yeah. It's
hopefully, I
by
mean,
Dave Quinn is the writer and Tim Vigil's the artist.
oh, cool. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out after this
Yeah.
because, I mean, I definitely want to get more into kind of the graphic novel realm,
Mhm.
because I mean it's definitely like a very cool avenue for I guess somebody like me, because obviously I think kind of working in the independent film realm I'm in, I can only make at the moment certain types of stories.
Mhm.
I can't, obviously I don't have the whole canvas of the world
Oh yeah.
at my fingertips, but like with comics you do. It's like anything you can imagine you can put out there,
Oh
and
yeah.
that to me is really cool.
And
And like exploring different genres and stuff seems really interesting.
well, I've got scripts I've worked on, but I did scripts for comic books first before I ever wrote my
Yeah.
first movie script,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a very different creature.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. Yeah.
and then also people look at you and go, well, what can go on in your head and what can go on in a film are two vastly different things.
Right. Yeah,
And
absolutely. For
uh,
sure. Especially, yeah, it's you almost have to have that mindset when you're writing, you
mhm.
know. Like I tell independent like people that I've worked with, like go into the mindset that you have, you know, I'm not gonna say nothing, but close to nothing. Like don't write a film like you have a studio budget,
Yeah.
basically. Like because it's just unless you're writing for spec or something, like it's just there's just no, if you're writing so you could make it and you could sell it and all that type of stuff, you have to be reasonable
Oh
with
yeah.
like kind of like what you're working with. And I think horror is kind of one of those genres. I mean, I haven't done horror yet, but I love horror. I mean, it's just like one of those genres that's kind of just my go-to. It's something I get really passionate about. It is. I think it's just because it's like such a rich genre, and like so many of my favorite filmmakers came from there. Like for instance, like he went on to direct superhero Sam Raimi. Like
Hmm.
Sam Raimi just had such an idiosyncratic like voice when it came to horror, and of course Romero and Toby Hooper, um, just so many great filmmakers just like work in the world of Wes Craven. Like just there's just so much character to their films,
Yeah.
and like even though they all work in the same genre, like they all just have their own personality to it.
Well, you look at Nightmare on Elm Street, look at Scream, look at Serpent and a Rainbow, look
Yeah,
at Hills Have Eyes, look at the Last House on Left, all directed by the same guy, all
yeah,
horror movies,
yeah.
all vastly different horror movies.
Yes, and that's what was really cool about Wes Craven, is that his films are he was very versatile.
Hmm.
I think as a filmmaker, and he's obviously a filmmaker. I think that just got better and better with time, because um, Last House on the Left obviously has its moments
Hmm.
like that are actually incredibly disturbing and
Yeah.
horrific. It has that weird comedy bit that's kind of strange, but it's fine.
Yeah.
And Last House on, I mean, Hills Have Eyes is a clear, like, I think just he's learned his craft. I think
Yeah.
like he's absolutely kind of like mastering his craft. Like you see somebody kind of being like, okay, I know what I did wrong in the last one. I'm not doing it here. And
Hmm.
like you can kind of see that.
Yeah.
I love Hills Have Eyes. That's my favorite Wes Craven movie. And then Wes, of course, he makes Nightmare on Elm Street. That just became a cultural phenomenon, and still probably his like most endearing legacy. Freddy Krueger, and
Hey.
then Scream is just, I think, a master at his craft. I mean, it's just you're just seeing like a master at work, really, like with Scream. So he's a very interesting filmmaker to kind of like learn about, I think, because
Yeah.
his beginnings are so like modest.
But yeah, and finding out that he had no intention of ever being a horror guy.
No,
I
not at
mean,
all. He barely had intention to be a filmmaker,
no.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he did the one
music of the from the
yeah, music
heart
of
or something.
yeah,
Yeah,
and people were like, "That's Wes Craven." I'm like, "That's Wes Craven. That's
yeah,
that Wes
yeah.
Craven."
Right.
Because I
Like,
remember people finding that in a video store and they're like looking at it as like, "Is it a horror movie?" I'm like, "No, it's a Wes Craven movie, and it's
right.
it's a not it's a drama, and they're like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's so, and like speaking of like kind of like just like the name of like because I feel like in horror like names are so identifiable.
mm-hmm,
Like the names of the directors are so identifiable, and that's you don't really see that with other genres. Like with horror, like Alfred Hitchcock, Wes Craven, John Carpenter,
mm-hmm,
like Romero, like they're almost just like household names,
mm-hmm,
you know, and to a large extent. Tim Burton. I mean, I
yeah,
guess he's not like horror, but like he's definitely dabbled.
yeah. He's
And
adjacent. He's adjacent.
he's a horror Jason. I mean,
He's a
Sleepy
horror
Hollow.
adjacent. Yeah,
I love Sleepy Hollow. I mean, like Sleepy Hollow is like just like the production design and just all of it. Of
that's
course,
Tim.
like it's,
That's
it's
Tim Burton making a Hammer film.
it is. It is. It's very, very
Mm-hmm.
much a Hammer film. It's got like a lot of the Hammer. Like it's. I love it. It's like it's probably my favorite Tim Burton if I had to choose. I mean, between that, like Edward Scissorhands or something like that.
I,
But
I will probably always go back to because I know he directed Batman and
yeah,
but that was a Warner Brothers movie with a little bit of his flair. But yeah,
yeah.
his movies, it's Sleepy Hollow for me.
Oh, totally, totally. It's just very. I love. First of all, I love that story. I love the story of the Headless Horseman and kind of like colonial America. Like, because there's like no movies that take place during that time period, so it's like it's cool to see in a movie,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's like gothic horror. And yeah, I just love that movie and just the kind of the look of it and the of course his production design is an art direction is just
Oh yeah,
impeccable. I mean, I was watching Edward Scissorhands the other day and just like the color in that film is just oh my god, like no film focuses on color anymore. It's so sad because I it's definitely something I feel like it's just completely I don't want to speak in general, but just like even just seeing the dinner scenes where you just see like the bright green peas, just like the way people are dressed and just the way the kitchen looks, it's just the color is amazing. I just love it.
yeah. Because I think that U.S. films have kind of lost that, but I think a lot of European and international films have still kept the vibrant colors,
Vibrant, yeah.
and that's I think that's something we've missed out on.
We were really missing out because like you watch any film or like a trailer of film, they're all so desaturated. They're all just like I don't know what happened. Was it like Saving Private Ryan? I don't know. Some movie came along where we're just gonna desaturate the shit out of this,
Well,
and then it just happened until the end of time.
we have the ongoing joke at our thing. It says like, man, DC comic movies are so dark.
Yeah,
No, not that they're dark subject matter. No, they're just filmed
they're just
very dark.
dark. Yeah, they're just like this. The Zack Snyder is so. I get like he has a fan, but like their films are so desaturated.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh my god, like they're just like I don't know, like some movies are just. What was I watching the other day? And like this movie's just ugly. Like it's just like it just. Oh, it's just some like it was like a film I watched on Netflix with Gerard Butler. I forget what it was called, but it was he lost his wife and he's trying to find her. But like, of course, yeah,
Movies, yeah.
yeah. And it was like I was just watching it. It's just all the camera work's just like this. It's just desaturated. It's like there's no color in this. There's just no. It's just like say what you will about like the new like monsters movie with the Rob Zombie movie. He went out with the color, man.
Oh
Like
yeah.
he like at least like it's very colorful.
He was told he wanted to do it in black and white. They said
Right.
no, so he goes, okay, then I'm going overboard on the color and
Right.
making yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, like, good for him. I mean, because I mean, fine, you know, you can't if you want to make a monsters movie, of course. Like, I don't know why they'd say no to black and white, but I don't know. Some people just get scared about black and white.
yeah,
It's so
'cause some
weird.
some people just it's not going to they wanted it to be as wide a market as they could,
Sure, yeah,
and
for
there's just
kids,
certain people who are
yeah,
just not going to watch it because it was black and white.
right. And I hope that like one day there's a black and white version or something that comes out like that's just like a special edition or something. But
Like what they did with Mad Max Fury Road,
right,
the
and like the
shiny and chrome.
mist or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, like they just like they have like a black and white version because like they for some reason they wouldn't let the filmmaker do it. Like it's sad when that like I was watching my brother and I like we don't like the film Van Helsing necessarily with Gene Hack or not Gene
Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman. Because like, but that's a movie like we saw when we were kids, and it kind of like got us into like Universal monsters and stuff like that. Like I remember like when we saw that film, like that's when they kind of came out with all the re-releases of like the collector's edition Draculas and Frankenstein's. So like when we saw that movie, I don't like the movie, but I think it definitely like kind of like invigorated kind of like my love for like Universal monsters and kind of gothic horror. But the beginning scene is pretty terrific. I don't like the beginning scene where like they kind of like recreate the kind of like James Whale burning of the windmill.
Yep.
And like the music of that whole scene, it's great. I'm like, why didn't the whole film get shot in black and white? What did they? Why?
And the worst part about it is finding out how, because that was supposed to be a direct sequel at one time to Dracula.
Gotcha. See, I did not know that.
Yeah, and then the fact that they built that entire town, which was going to be a set for the TV series called Transylvania.
Really? So there's like a whole backstory for
this. There's a massive backstory to the whole thing. And I just found a movie recently that I didn't know, The Wolfman.
Yeah.
The Benicio had a sequel.
Oh yeah. Was it like a straight to?
Yeah, it was never meant to be straight to DVD or straight to video, but it's like Werewolves, Monsters Within.
Really?
Or Monsters Among Us. And it was supposed to be a direct sequel to the Benicio del Toro, but they were already filming. They already had the sets and everything. So they're just like, all right, well, we'll just release it on.
Well, it's like really funny because like Universal's tried to like kind of capitalize off that monster stuff for a really long time, and like none of them have worked that much. I mean, like the Invisible Man was like a very cool, like interesting take on the kind of that story. But yeah, like they tried that Mummy of Tom Cruise. Of course, they had the Brendan Fraser ones, which are perfectly fine. Like I think those movies are fine. Like, but for some reason they just haven't been able to kind of like get that going.
I think they picked the wrong person to hinge an entire universe on with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, especially with monsters.
Yeah, I was like, and the fact is that he has all these clauses in his contract where his female co-star can't be over a certain age.
Right, yeah,
you're just like, dude, you're 60 years old, man. And the girl that's playing the mummy is like 26.
Yeah, she's supposed to find you attractive.
Yeah,
I mean, he's holding up. I mean, he's definitely doing something.
Yeah.
But he definitely, because like, why would you want an action star? Like they were trying to make that the Universals like action movies.
Yeah.
Like they're not action movies.
No.
Like they never, like that's why I thought The Invisible Man was because it was still a horror movie. Like it still was a small scale horror movie, and that's what the Universal monsters are. Like they're not these action movies.
Supposedly, Blumhouse has the rights to move forward with more of the Universal monsters.
Okay, so maybe they'll do right by them. Like that will I guess we'll see. I mean,
fingers crossed, man.
I kind of I know, right? Because I kind of like I like the Invisible, but I don't like the fact that they're not like period. I guess like I kind like if they're gonna do Dracula, I don't necessarily want to see Dracula like modern times.
We're gonna see what happens with Renfield.
So, yes, is that Universal then?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, and then isn't Nicolas Cage Dracula?
Nicolas Cage is Dracula.
Oh man, that's gonna be something because that's honestly kind of like good casting. Yeah.
There's a lot of horror movies that I'm pumped for, but I'm cautiously optimistic now. Because I get too excited about horror movies and then I'm completely let down on them.
Yeah, because they don't pan out.
Yeah, or they kind of like, okay, what you originally were offered is not what you get at the end.
No, right? Yeah, like the Halloween series, I guess. Like the David Gordon Green ones, like it kind of started out, we're going back to the roots, to like what Halloween was, and then they kind of went crazy at the second one, and then the third one, it's like, like you said, it's kind of like a loophole. Like it's
Yeah.
like not really a Halloween movie. Not really. I mean,
Well,
it's
I was reading the other day that it's in the contract that you cannot definitively get rid of Michael Myers.
really
Yeah, it's in the contract. You cannot definitively show Michael
Michael
Myers
Myers.
dying.
Really? So
Yeah.
they
So it's one of them ones where there's always got to be a loophole that they can bring him back.
right.
So I'm not gonna lie, I um I very rarely like have like sat down and touched on scripts and stuff like that on like your Jasons, your Freddy's, or whatever.
Sure.
But a few years ago, I put together a bit of a script for a Halloween movie
Oh yeah.
because I love the fact is that he keeps coming back to the town over and over and over again, and yet
Yeah.
everybody's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe he's."
Yeah.
I had the whole thing is Haddonfield is pretty much like just low, like super poor people
Yeah.
because
Like it's a low end. That makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Yeah, because people are
because
leaving.
you can live in these really nice houses and stuff,
Yeah.
but you because you're getting the property super cheap because no one wants to live there anymore.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but it's and so I went through the whole thing, and then of course I had to kind of touch on I guess what it's like to be poor
Right.
and
Yeah. Kind of
and
a social thing.
yeah, it was a little bit of social
Yeah.
commentary in
Yeah.
there, and but yeah, I put all this stuff in there, and I'm like, I'd love to be able to make this one day, but it'll never see the light of day. But I'm like, whatever. But it's fun. It was a fun little writing
No.
process I kind of worked
No.
on.
Totally. Like I think that's totally like a cool thing to do. Like I was even at like a pumpkin festival or something, and like and at night at it's like a small town in Ohio, and it's like, why didn't they do like something where like Michael Myers is on the prowl during like a fall festival? you know?
That's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Texas Chainsaw 3D.
Oh yeah,
The one
yeah.
where he goes to the end, he goes through the carnival.
Oh
I'm like,
yeah.
and he just walks through like nothing. I'm like,
Right, yeah.
you missed the fact that he could have just been, yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's like honestly, that probably like the imagery of kind of like I don't know carnival stuff, especially at night and like like I feel like it would have looked cool aesthetically at least, but I have no interest in like of adding to the legacy of Hollywood. I don't want that responsibility. It's way too much. Some of the
Yeah,
people get like very, very protective.
yeah.
And I mean, I'm not as protective because like I love the Carpenter original. You could always love the Carpenter original. Just because it's a movie that you don't like doesn't mean the Carpenter original is ruined. Like
Yeah,
it's still a great movie. I mean,
yeah.
like it doesn't ruin the movie.
I can go back and see Michael Myers and enjoy it, and I can still ignore the fact that he had a kung fu fight with Buster Rhymes at one point.
Right.
So,
It's like trick or treat, motherfucker, you know.
and people go, "Oh, that's just the
Classic.
worst movie ever." I'm like, then you did not see Halloween Resurrection.
No, no. It like there's so like that's why it's so funny when people are like, oh, this one's so bad, this one's so bad. I'm like, I hate to break it to people of the Halloween like franchise, but like there really hasn't been a great Halloween since the very first one. Like the second one is good. The third one is interesting and
Yeah,
good in a lot of ways. But like after that, like there's no one that's like, oh my god, this completely lives up to the first one. Because the first one's like it's like Jaws, you know, like
yeah.
you're not gonna recreate Jaws. You can make sequels, but they're not gonna be as good as the first one. It's just not gonna happen.
Nope. There's very few people that have ever. I mean, legitimately, I think the only time, very rarely ever, do you get the a sequel to be better than the original, except for like maybe Empire Strikes Back, The
Yeah,
Godfather
yeah.
2.
But I'm trying to think of
Um,
horror movie like series where like one is better than like like a sequel is better than the original. I just I can't
uh,
really.
I, I know this is
Maybe,
bad. I love Nightmare 3 more than I like Nightmare 1.
yeah, right.
But
Yeah,
legitimately, Nightmare 3 was the one that caught me. That was the first one I got to see in theaters,
sure.
by myself as a kid.
Like they're like one can't like objectively say like one is better. Yeah, that's totally true. I mean, like you could always have a preference. Like
Yeah.
it's just like it's just I don't know. It's like what's it called? I guess if you consider the Dead trilogy like of Romero. Like I definitely think Dawn of the Dead is better than Night of the Living Dead,
Yeah,
but that's also that's subjective.
yeah.
Like
There's also
what
more money in there and
right.
a lot better special effects and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, of course. And then, is the crazies in there? Like I don't know. So it's and I don't really count. That's not like a that's more like a trilogy in the sense that the Man with No Name trilogy, the Dollar trilogy. It's not like a trilogy where it's like following one thing after another. So
yeah, yep.
it's just hard to say. Like I don't know. I've never been a huge fan of like the Friday the 13th movies. Like not even like really the first one. Like out of all the like out of like the big like three or whatever, like that one's just never caught my attention. But I've heard people like the one where he just it was like three where he gets the mask. So
Yeah, I've I've
so,
I've always been partial to six. Yet again, it's because that's the first one I saw in the theater as
right.
a teenager,
Yeah.
and back when theaters didn't care if you were, you walk up, you hand them your money, you're like, all right, going in, kid.
Oh yeah. I mean that's just the way it is. I mean that unfortunately, I mean that's hopefully we can, get some more horror fans to kind of like jump up, but like you were kind of come up during that whole slasher craze, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah,
Like it was just one after the other. It's
yep.
just, yeah,
And there's so many, and you look at the slashers, and you're like, okay, how did this one get more, and this one got one movie? When
right,
like
yeah.
the Prowler and My Bloody Valentine
My
and
Bloody Valentine, the first one's very good.
yeah,
Yeah.
Maniac.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh my gosh, Maniac!
yeah,
Yeah, I love Maniac.
and that's one that the sequel, the reboot is almost, if not better than the original.
Of Maniac,
Yeah, Elijah
really?
Wood as
I haven't seen that one.
oh,
Okay.
go stop now, go
Okay.
immediately
All right. After this,
after
I
this,
gotta
go
go.
watch it. It's
Yeah.
you'll never be able to look at Elijah Wood the same way ever again.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I guess Frodo Baggins is no more.
yeah, it's a really good movie, and it's one of the ones where, okay, of course, people are going to be partial to the original because you grew up on the original and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I
Yeah.
I sat down and watched both of them on the same day,
Right.
and I gave myself some time apart. So I think I watched one midday and I watched one like late in the evening,
Yeah.
and I'm like sitting there because you watch that one, the new one, and you're just like, whew, that's
Yeah.
and it's a lot of POV stuff. So it's a lot of
Right.
and Elijah Wood he's one of them guys who's everybody he's
He's kind of like cute, I
yeah,
guess. Yeah.
and to watch him change into this movie and to
Like
be this
transform. Yeah.
horrible person, and you're just like,
Like holy
how,
shit.
why are people
Yeah.
sleeping on Elijah Wood other than the fact he
Yeah.
still looks
I
like
mean,
he's 12?
true. I mean, like he's not used a lot, which is unfortunate. But I
Mhm.
mean, I'll definitely have to check it out because I'm a huge fan of the first one, and in particular, I just love I love Joe Spinell. I
Yeah,
just think that guy was God. I wish I could have worked with like Joe Spinell. I was just thinking because like he's just got such a look and presence in films. Like even in like he's like barely in The Godfather, but like when he just like shoots that guy through the like the sidewinding door and stuff like that, it's very disturbing.
oh, all right, well, we've been at this for a while. My wife's now
Yeah.
home, so I'm gonna wrap it up here.
Yeah,
um
for sure.
but hold on a second, let me give her
Yeah, no problem.
yeah. Yeah, we working on movies and stuff like that. How do people get to you for production?
For production, you can go ahead and DM me, send me a message. So it's Catalano Film Co. At Facebook and Instagram. I also have an email that's also Catalano Film Co. at gmail.com. So if you have any short films or anything that you've been sitting on maybe for a little bit and you kind of just want to get the ball rolling, I got kind of a team with me. We're gonna try to get your film produced. So like that's like really the goal is reading your script, like submitting your script. We'll look over the script and yeah, we'll just go from there. I mean, that's basically it. So I mean, if anybody's interested in kind of, because I've been there before. You have a short film, you've been like, oh man, it's just like not happening. You know what I mean? And that a lot of the time it comes out of production. Like everybody needs a producer. So like that, we're really there for you to be your producer and to be kind of the person you look to for logistics and just nailing down production dates, all that type of stuff that directors don't really want to deal with, writers don't really want to deal with. And yeah, so that's where you can reach me.
Cool. All right. Well, I appreciate you being on the show, and I hate to rush it at the end, but
Oh,
uh,
no issue, man. Like I had a great time again, man. And
yeah,
yeah, of course, like anytime, like love talking shop, love talking movies. I was like, let's talk horror since it's October.
yeah.
So yeah, next time we could talk about, even more.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, you take care, sir, and I will
Yep.
talk to you again soon.